Russia said it had the most powerful air defense system on the planet. Then Ukraine started proving that wrong, one radar at a time. If that surprises you, stay with me, because what has been happening in the skies above Russia over the last year is one of the most important and underreported stories of this entire war. Before we go any further, here's a question I want you to sit with. What does it mean for a military superpower when the very system it built to feel safe is slowly being turned into rubble? Think about that as we go deeper. For years, Russia told the world its air defenses were nearly impossible to beat. The S-400 Triumph was the crown jewel of that argument. It is a massive, sophisticated missile system that Russia claimed could track and destroy almost anything flying toward it. Missiles, jets, drones. Russia sold this system to countries like India, Turkey, and China. It marketed it globally as the best in the world. The message was simple: you cannot get through us. But Ukraine did not accept that message. What has unfolded since mid-2025 is a slow, systematic, and deeply strategic campaign to dismantle Russia's air defense network piece by piece. And according to available reports, it is working in ways that even military analysts did not fully expect this quickly. Let us start with the numbers, because the numbers tell a story that is hard to ignore. According to verified data from Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, in just the first 5 months of 2026, Ukrainian drone strikes hit 174 Russian air defense assets: radars, launchers, command units, electronic warfare equipment. The estimated financial value of what was destroyed in that period alone exceeded $5.4 billion. That is not a typo. $5.4 billion of Russia's most prized military equipment, gone largely because of drones that cost a fraction of what they destroyed. And this was not random. It was not lucky. It was a plan. Open-source researchers tracking this campaign identified more than 492 Ukrainian strikes specifically targeting Russian air defense infrastructure between June 2025 and early March 2026. Another 433 strikes hit the broader systems that support Russian air defense, things like radar networks, command centers, and electronic warfare units. What Ukraine was doing was not just attacking individual weapons, it was attacking the nervous system of Russia's entire air protection network. Think of it like this: a spider's web is strong because every thread is connected. Cut enough threads in the right places and the whole web falls apart. That is exactly what Ukraine has been doing. And now, the web has holes. In late March 2026, a Ukrainian strike took out an S-400 Triumph launcher in Russia's Tula region. Days before that, the Bryansk region's Buk M3 system was destroyed. In January 2026, video evidence confirmed that a 9S-32M1 radar, part of Russia's S-300V system, was completely destroyed. And back in November 2025, Ukrainian drones destroyed 4 S-400 launchers and 2 key radars at a major Russian base near Novorossiysk on the Black Sea coast. Satellite images confirmed the damage. Analysts described it as blowing a hole in Russian defenses. And here's the part that really matters. These are not just weapons being destroyed. These are the eyes and the muscles of Russia's entire defensive system. When you destroy a radar, you blind the system. The missiles cannot see what to hit. When you destroy a launcher, you remove the ability to respond. When you knock out command centers, the entire network loses the ability to think and react. You are not just breaking individual pieces. You are breaking the coordination that makes those pieces powerful. Now here is where the story gets even more interesting. And stay with me, because this is the part most people miss entirely. Russia was supposed to protect Moscow. The Russian capital has the densest air defense coverage of any city in the country. Multiple rings of protection, layers upon layers of radar, missiles, and interception systems designed so that nothing could ever get close to the Kremlin. This was a matter of national pride, a signal to the world that the heart of Russia was untouchable. But according to available reports, Ukrainian drones have been reaching Moscow with growing frequency. The penetration of Moscow's air defense ring has become regular enough that it forced Vladimir Putin to scale back his Victory Day parade on May 9th. Let that sink in. The celebration of Russia's greatest military victory in history, the commemoration of defeating Nazi Germany, one of the most symbolically important events in the entire Russian calendar, was toned down because Putin's own security team could not confidently say the airspace above Moscow was safe. That is not a minor embarrassment. That is a signal to the world that something has fundamentally changed. When Putin's own security detail reportedly had to use portable anti-drone equipment to protect him during a visit to St. Petersburg in July 2025, something had shifted in a very deep and very visible way. Now ask yourself this: if a country cannot fully protect its own capital, if it cannot guarantee the safety of its own leaders' public appearances, what does that tell you about the true state of its defenses? The campaign Ukraine is running is built on a concept that military strategists call degradation. You do not need to destroy everything at once. You do not need one massive dramatic strike. Instead, you hit systematically, patiently, and repeatedly. Every radar you destroy makes the next strike easier. Every launcher you knock out creates a gap in coverage. Every command unit you hit makes the system slower and less coordinated. Over time, the gaps become corridors, and those corridors become roads into Russian territory that Ukrainian missiles and long-range drones can travel through to hit targets much deeper inside Russia. Oil refineries, weapons factories, military logistics hubs, supply lines that feed Russian forces at the front. These are the targets that become reachable once the air defense network starts to crack. And that is exactly what the data shows is happening. Ukrainian drone production has been scaling at a staggering rate. According to available information, production of mid-range strike drones rose by 312% in just the first 4 months of 2026 compared to all of 2025. That is not just growth, that is an industrial surge. Ukraine is building its way into a position where it can sustain this campaign indefinitely and where the tempo of strikes can only increase. Meanwhile, Russia faces a problem it cannot solve with missiles alone. The economics of this war in the air are brutal for Moscow. To intercept one Ukrainian drone, Russia has to fire interceptor missiles that often cost far more than the drone itself. An interceptor missile might cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, some cost millions. The drones Ukraine is using to overwhelm the system cost a fraction of that. Russia is spending enormously just to stay even, and it is not staying even. When you force a military to use expensive missiles to stop cheap drones every single night, you drain its stockpiles, exhaust its crews, and burn money that cannot easily be replaced under sanctions. And at the same time, the drones keep coming. Ukraine has also been doing something tactically brilliant that often goes unnoticed. It has been using swarm attacks, sending large numbers of drones at once from multiple directions to overwhelm radar and interception systems, even if Russia shoots down most of them, the ones that get through cause damage. And the effort required to intercept the swarm itself drains resources. It is exhausting by design, it is expensive by design, and it is working by design. Operation Spider's Web, conducted by Ukraine's security service in June 2025, was a perfect example of this new kind of warfare. Ukraine concealed explosive-laden drones inside the roofs of wooden sheds, which were then unknowingly transported by truck drivers to the perimeters of multiple Russian air bases. The strikes hit from the inside. You cannot intercept something that is already inside your defenses. It was not just effective, it was a message that said, "We are inside your system and you do not even know it." Let us pause here for a moment. This is the point in the story where the deeper meaning starts to emerge. And I want you to really sit with this, because this is not just about hardware and missiles. What Russia built its entire military image on was the idea of invulnerability, the idea that it was too strong to be challenged on its own soil, that its defenses made it untouchable. For decades, that image was part of Russia's strategic power. It was part of why other countries feared it and respected it. It was part of how Russia projected itself as a global military superpower. When that image breaks, even partially, even quietly, the consequences ripple outward in ways that go far beyond the battlefield. Other countries watching this conflict are drawing conclusions about Russian weapons. India bought the S-400, Turkey bought the S-400. These are countries that made enormous financial and political investments in Russia's air defense technology. What are they seeing now? They are seeing their purchase being systematically taken apart by a smaller, less funded military using drones. That has consequences for Russia's arms exports, for its global reputation, and for the trust that other governments place in its military technology. NATO analysts are watching even more carefully, because what Ukraine is demonstrating is not just how to beat Russia. It is a template. It is a blueprint for how modern warfare can take down even sophisticated air defense systems through persistence, technology, creativity, and scale. That blueprint is going to shape military thinking for the next generation. There is also a consequence playing out right now inside Russia itself. Every region that loses air defense coverage has to be protected again. Russia has to move equipment around, spread its resources thinner, defend more territory with less coverage. And the more Ukraine forces Russia to defend its own homeland, the fewer resources Russia has to project power into Ukraine. This is the strategic logic behind Ukraine's deep strike campaign. It is not just about destruction. It is about forcing Russia into a defensive posture on its own soil. That is a fundamental shift in the nature of this war. Russia invaded Ukraine with the expectation that Ukraine would collapse quickly and that Russia would dictate the terms of the conflict. More than 4 years later, Ukraine is striking inside Russia regularly. It is destroying Russian air defenses on Russian territory. It is forcing the Kremlin to protect Moscow. It is making Putin scale back his own parade. None of that was supposed to happen. And yet here we are. What makes this especially important is that the trajectory is moving in one direction. Ukraine's drone production is growing. Ukraine's targeting is getting sharper. Ukraine's ability to exploit gaps in Russian coverage is improving with every strike. The corridors that are opening in Russia's air defense network are getting wider. And based on what is known so far, Russia's ability to replace what is being destroyed is increasingly constrained by sanctions, industrial capacity, and the sheer cost of what it is losing. The question that military experts are now asking is not whether Russia's air defenses are under pressure. That is already clear. The question is how far this degradation goes. How many more radars can Ukraine blind before entire regions of Russia lose meaningful air defense coverage? How many more S-400 systems can be destroyed before the system cannot compensate for the losses? How long before the corridors that Ukraine has opened become wide enough to change the fundamental military balance of this war? Nobody has a definitive answer yet, but the direction of travel is becoming harder and harder to ignore. Russia once told the world it was protected. It told its own people they were safe behind a wall of missiles and radars that nothing could penetrate. But a wall is only as strong as every part of it. And right now, Ukraine is chipping away at that wall, piece by piece, night by night, strike by strike. The sky above Russia is no longer what Moscow said it was, and once that truth takes hold, it does not let go. History has a way of recording the moments when power shifts, not in a single dramatic explosion, but in the quiet accumulation of losses, gaps, and changes that take time to add up but become impossible to deny. We may be watching one of those moments right now, and most people have no idea it is happening. If this story made you think differently about this war, about modern military power, or about what invulnerability actually means in the modern age, then share it with one person who you think needs to understand what is really happening out there. Because the most important stories are often the ones that move the quietest.